So for this final chunk of the chord lesson, let's talk about ways to modify chords. So we're going to have a bunch of different kinds of modifications. First, we're going to have suspensions. That's when you mess with the third of a chord. We're going to have sixth chords. That's when you mess a little bit with the fifth of the chord, a little bit. Tensions, that's when you add stuff to the chord. And altering tensions, that's when you mess with the stuff that you added. So to discuss our first type of modification, the suspension, let's use our major triad. We'll use our C major triad as our example. In a C major triad, the root is C, the major third is E, and the perfect fifth is G, as we've discussed. And we're going to call this 1, 3, 5. Root, third, fifth. If you raise the third up to the perfect fourth from the root, or lower it down to the major second from the root, that's called suspending the third. In other words, you take 1, 3, 5 and you turn it into 1, 4, 5 or into 1, 2, 5. So in our C triad, we can suspend it if we raise the major third E to the perfect fourth, which is F. And then we get C, F, G, which is a C sus4 chord. You'll see C sus 4, and that means you took the third and you moved it up to the fourth. If we lower our major third, E, to our major second, D, then we get C, D, G, which is a C sus2 chord. That's when you move the third down to the second. So here are a C sus4 chord on guitar and a C sus2 chord on guitar, just so you can hear them, see them. So the same thing works for minor triads. If you take C minor, C, E flat, G, C, E flat, G, and raise the minor third to the perfect fourth, you get C, F, G, which is C sus4, which is the same result you got when you raised the major, because you're still raising it to the perfect fourth. So they're kind of neutral in that they don't have a third, so not minor, they're not major, they're just suspended in space. If you take C, E flat, G, and lower the minor third to the major second, you get C, D, G, which is C sus2. So here they are again on guitar. They're the same. Even though we started with minor, we ended up with the same thing. So let's take a G major triad and turn it into G sus4. To do this, we find that our G triad is G, B, D, and we raise B, the major third from the root, up to C, which is the perfect fourth above the root, and we get G, C, D. That's our G sus4 chord. So try on your own, try turning D minor into D sus4. Found the D minor triad to be D, F, A, and then raised F up to the perfect fourth from D, which is G, and that would get you D, G, A for your D sus4. So now, take this moment and find A sus2. Alright, so you should have found that an A major triad is A, C sharp, E, and then you can lower C sharp to B to suspend 3 to the major second. So your answer would be A, B, E. And that's how suspensions work. So you got your sus4 and your sus2. It's just moving the third up to 4 or down to 2. So next let's look at sixth chords. Basically, if you take a major or minor triad and replace the fifth with the sixth, then you have a sixth chord. So 1, 3, 5 becomes 1, 3, 6, and 1 flat 3, 5, which is your minor triad, becomes 1 flat 3, 6. So let's just try that with our C major and C minor triads. If we replace the G in a C major triad, C, E, G, we replace the G with a major sixth up from C, we get C, E, A instead of C, E, G. And C, E, A is called a C6 chord. Here's how it looks and sounds on guitar. And then if we replace the G in a C minor triad with A, we get C, E flat, A. And that's called a C minor 6th chord. And here's how that sounds and looks. So it's not too complicated. You just take the 5th and move it up to 6th. So try changing a B major triad into a B6 and a D minor triad into a D minor 6. So you should have gotten B, D sharp, F sharp from your B major triad, and then you swap the F sharp with G sharp. F sharp's your 5th, you want to swap it with your 6th, which is G sharp, leaving you with B, D sharp, G sharp for your B major 6th chord. For your D minor triad, you should have started with DFA and then swapped the A with B. So A is the 5th and then B is the 6th, so you take the 5th out, put B in, and then you get DFB, which is the D minor 6th chord. So DFB, D minor 6. Alright, so the next modification I want to share with you is the process of adding notes on top of chords while leaving the basic structure intact. So in a 7th arpeggio or a 7th chord of any type, you have some form of 1, 3, 5, 7, right? Your 4 notes are the 1, then the major 3rd up from 1, the perfect 5th up from 1, and then the 7th up from 1. Well, actually, it could be any 3rd up from 1, any 5th up from 1, any 7th up from 1, depending on what kind of 7th chord you have. So for example, C, E flat, G, B flat. That's your C minor 7. That's 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7. Or 1, 3, 5, 7, which is C, E, G, B. That's major 3rd, perfect 5th, major 7th. There's always some form of root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th in the chord. So each of these 7th chords has 4 notes in them. But you'll recall that a key has 7 notes in it. So in the whole scale, you'll find 7 notes, and we're using only 4 of them at a time in these chords. So what happens when we add one of the other 3 notes besides 1, 3, 5, and 7 to the chord? So when you add those notes besides 1, 3, 5, and 7 to a chord on top of it, it's called adding a tension, or some people refer to it as an extension. It just depends where you went to school, but it just don't matter at all. I learned to call them tensions myself, so I am going to call them tensions, but it doesn't make any difference. So there are 3 missing notes in your scale. If you take out 1, 3, 5, and 7, there's 3 left over, right? Because there's 7 notes in a scale. And those notes are the 2, the 4, and the 6. And when we add them on top of a 7th chord, we call them 9, 11, and 13. And I'll show you why. So if you look at this piano, you'll see the notes of the C major scale are highlighted. And we number the notes on the C scale, or any major scale, as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then when we get to the top of the octave again, in this case C again, it's called 8. That's number 8. So if you go past 8, you can go to 9, and that's D. And that can be considered the 9 or the 2, because in a C major scale, C, D, D is the 2nd note. But if you go up an octave, it's the 9th note. But it's still just D. So it's the 9 relative to the very first bottom C, but it's the 2 relative to the higher C, the 2nd C, the octave, the number 8. Since we are putting these tensions on top of chords, they're often more than an octave above the root of the chord, so we do call them 9 or 11 or 13. And a quick way to remember which is which is you add or subtract 7 from the number you got. So if you've got 2 and you want to remember what's the octave higher version of 2, you just add 7, you got 9. And if you have 9 and you want to say, what's that one again? Oh yeah, that's 2. You subtract 7. Same goes for 4. 4 is 11. 11 is 4. 6 is 13. 13 is 6, of course. And so you just add 7 to 2, 4, or 6 to figure out whether it's 9, 11, 13. Just, it's a quick trick to remember what they are when they're called tensions. So if you take a C major 7 chord in which C is 1, E is 3, G is 5, and B is 7, and you add the 2 anywhere, which is D, the note is D, then it's called a C major 7/9 chord. So by adding the 2 to the major 7 chord, it becomes major 7/9. So this shouldn't be confused with suspensions, where we take the third and replace it with the 2. Because here, we're leaving the third in, and we're just adding the 2. We're adding more notes to the party. We've got 4. Let's get a 5th. Why not? Come hang out with us, number 9. So it becomes C major 7/9 when you take a C major 7 chord and add the D. If you add the 4 to a C major 7 chord, which is F, C, D, E, F, that's 4, you get a C major 7/11 chord. That chord isn't very common because if you actually sit down and play it, it doesn't sound very good, but that's what it is. You take a major 7 and you add an 11 to it. If you add an A to a C major 7, you get C, E, G, B, A. And the A is the 6, so we call it the 13, since we're talking about tensions here. And you get a C major 7/13 chord. So if you add the 2, the 6, or the 4, then you're making it either a 9, or an 11, or a 13 chord, which just, that number comes after the regular 7th chord description. So if you called it C major 7, you added the 9, it's C major 7/9. Add the 11, C major 7/11, and so on. So with that knowledge, what notes are in a G major 7/9 chord? So you should have formed G, B, D, F sharp as your basic G major 7 chord. And then you add the 2, which is also known as the 9, and that's A. And you would have gotten G, B, D, F sharp, A. And that's G major 7/9 chord. So what are the notes in an F minor 7/11 chord? So first you form an F minor 7 chord, which is F, A flat, C, E flat. Then you add the 11, also known as the 4, which is B flat, and you end up with F, A flat, C, E flat, B flat for your F minor 7/11 chord. So F minor 7/11 is just F minor 7, and you throw in the 11, which is also the 4. Same thing. So what notes are in a D7/13 chord? Well, first you form D, F sharp, A, C. That's your D7 chord. And then you add the 13, or the 6, which is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. B is the 6, so you add B. You end up with D, F sharp, A, C, B for your answer. So D7/13 is D, F sharp, A, C, B. Alright, we're almost at the finish line, and you know, all this tension stuff is like some college level music theory right there. So, you know, give you an idea of the kinds of things you learn in your first semester at a school like Berkeley, and those are among the things. You might learn them in high school too, just depends what's going on with the program, but as you can tell, it's a lot of information, but it follows a logical formula, and it's not too much for anyone to comprehend. You just have to practice repetitions of quizzing yourself. What's a G major 7 chord going to be? What's a D7/13 going to be? You know, just quiz yourself and review the videos, as I keep saying. So the last way of modifying chords that we're going to discuss in this lesson is altering tensions. So once you've added tensions on top of a note, like your 9, your 13, and your 11, then you can alter them by sharpening them or flattening them. So basically, you can sharpen or flatten tensions to get different sounds, and based on everything we've done so far, can you tell me what a D7 sharp 9 chord is? So I gave you a chance to figure it out, but simply put, it's just a D7/9 chord where you raise the 9 up a half step, making it a sharp 9. So instead of D, F sharp, A, C, E, which is D7/9 because you got that E in there, which is the 9, you have D, F sharp, A, C, E sharp, which is D7 sharp 9 because you sharped the 9. You made the 9 sharper. Wow! Knowing this, what notes do you think are in a D7 flat 13 chord? So first you find a D7 and you add the 13, so you have your D7 13 chord, and then you flat the 13. So you've got a D, F sharp, A, C, that's your D7, and you add the B, which is the 13, and then you flat the B, make it a B flat, so you have D, F sharp, A, C, B flat, and that's it. That's a D7 flat 13. D, F sharp, A, C, B flat. Okay, here's a really big test on chords. Just pause the video and try to name the notes in all of these chords, and then I will give the answers. And just to check, if you get a lot of them wrong or if you have a hard time with it, that is totally fine. It takes many learnings to get something to really stick. That's one of the best things about YouTube, is because you can turn my stupid channel off and go watch someone else's explanation of this stuff, and you'll get another perspective on it, and it'll help it really stick, because most of these guys have got it right. I'm glad to say that most people teach beginning theory correctly. Maybe the order of explanations is a little confusing. Everyone's going to have a different preference for how they want to be taught. But generally speaking, I think this is the kind of stuff that YouTube teachers, especially like Justin Guitar and those reputable folks, are doing really well. So you can watch my videos on it and then watch their videos on it, and that will really help it all stick in. So try and find all of these chords and take your time, and then check out the answers and see how you did. So that's the end of part 1 of this enormous theory course, which is the biggest thing I've ever set out to do on the internet. And the next part is going to be to review a lot of the stuff we've covered already, but translating it all to the guitar and really getting deep into how does this fit on my axe or my grandpa box, whichever you prefer. Lately I've been playing grandpa boxes, but that was a lot of talking. I'm going to get some water, and I hope you've enjoyed this first huge chunk of this series. Bye-bye.